COVID. Watching NTV Weekend Edition. Thank you all for staying with us. And now, as the country struggles with a second wave of COVID-19 infections, the government opted for a second lockdown. Now, unlike the first one, which delivered a devastating blow to the tourism industry, there has been a deliberate effort by the government to leave avenues for survival open. To help us appreciate whether those efforts are keeping hope alive in the sector, we have a leading practitioner in the sector, AMOS WEKESA. Welcome to Talk of the Nation tonight.
All right, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Well, speaking tourism, how is it performing compared to the initial lockdown, the first lockdown?
Well, the reality is that 2020, the last 16 months have been a nightmare for the tourism industry in all ways. Our expectations, of course, in 2019 for 2020 were extremely very high because in tourism, we get bookings a year or 2 years in advance. So by 2019, we knew how much business was coming in 2020. And we had registered massive growth. I think we were going to grow probably about 30% for 2020. February coming in, we started hearing these COVID challenges. Much, of course, things stopped. And when it stopped, it was such a devastating time for the tourism industry. And it's been so for the last 16 months. Now, a lot of the tourists that cancelled in 2020. What happened in 2020? Since tourists pay us money in advance, a year in advance, sometimes 2 years in advance, they pay deposits because we have to pay hotels, we have to pay, go to the permits and all this kind of stuff. There was a lot of refunds during the 2020. So if clients had paid you in advance, quite a number, probably 70% of the clients that we were expecting in 2020 asked back their money, so we were able to refund a lot of money. But about the 30% of the numbers that remained decided to postpone their trips to certain dates. And the expectations that summer 2021 was going to be the time. And as right now, as we speak, from the day we got the 42-day lockdown, a lot of the tourists are now trying to postpone the trips for 2022 summertime in either Europe or the US. Of course, we've also just gotten a big blow right now this week when Uganda was listed, red listed in the UK because
and
the
also
UK,
Dubai as well.
but the UK is our major market.
Okay.
As a country, if you talk about the Western world. So the UK comes in number one. The top three are the UK, German, and the US. Those are the top three. There's source markets, we call them, where tourists come to Uganda from. Now, the blacklisting of Dubai had a history. One of our challenges as a country, we do not know how to communicate internally and also how to communicate internationally for growth or for keeping opportunities. That's one of our biggest problems. So about a month ago, someone goes on BBC, a doctor from, I think, Ministry of Health, and his communication just killed it completely. He was more like, the situation is so hopeless, and, his communication was not a communication that would keep business going on. That also led to the CNN communication. CNN even worsened it. So after CNN, you'd definitely expect countries to react. So Saudi Arabia reacted, Emirates stopped flying into Entebbe, Rwanda Air stopped their flights, and that's how it has been. But the truth is that, yes, COVID is a big challenge. We need to make sure that we continue doing things that government has advised, putting on our masks, making sure we get jabs, making sure that, if the airport is open, should be, run extremely very well. Now, what the tourism industry had done, because government had put us under the essential workers.
Yes.
A lot of us, including myself, I've taken my 2 jabs. And then all our guides have taken jabs. All our people working at the hotels, at the restaurants, hotels that we own, are also gotten their jabs. But even when they've gotten their jobs, we're still working and operating under the needed SOPs, which is a fantastic thing. Now, in the communication on CNN and BBC, there was no explanation of what exactly government is doing to make sure that they reduce the challenges. This week, I was hosted by the Africa Hub in the UK, and I was talking to about 500 wholesalers, people in the Europe, especially in the UK, the US, and Australia. So each country had one representative, and I was representing Uganda because I was asked by the Africa Hub.
Yeah.
I was the second last person to do the presentation, and I realized that there are only 2 countries that actually had fewer deaths than us. One was Rwanda, which had 388 people who had died from COVID. The other was Tanzania, which didn't even show the figures.
So that means we're not doing that bad.
Absolutely. So we had 680 by the time I was doing this presentation. But a country like Botswana, which has 2.3 million people, had 5,900 deaths. A country like South Africa had 58,000 who had died. The UK, which has burnt us, has had over 128,000 deaths. Yes, and the reality is that I was telling them, yes, there is a challenge in Uganda. Government has acknowledged it. They have created certain conditions under which we have to operate, which is okay. You know what I'm talking about. Now, the reason why we went to this stage, there was a time when we had 34 people, die. And of course, the government needed to do something about it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, the people that had 58,000 deaths, Botswana, which had 5,900, and all other countries, even Kenya had over 3,500 deaths. They were pushing for business like crazy. Right now, even when you're following the news, Kenya is rocking the world with the World Rally. They are reaching 850 million viewers all over the world. The Safari Rally that's happening in Kenya right now.
Yeah.
You've just seen Rwanda. They've just finished the Africa NBA. People are pushing an agenda such that when the market opens up, you are not caught up. Now, as a country, even during COVID, we're borrowing. We're indebted. Somehow we must find a way of us being able to look after the economy.
All right. Now, we do note that the airport, hotels and lodges this time around in the second lockdown have been deliberately opened. But there is a general notion, general belief that it is only open for the tourists from other countries, and basically domestic tourism is not allowed. Speak to us on that and why we need to clarify on that as well.
I still think that the president was very clear. The challenge has come in with the announcement that was made about 3 days ago. A tourist is a person who leaves place A and goes to place B, spends over 24 hours, and it must be less than a year. In place B, you should not have a permanent job. So if you left Kampala and went to Gulu, spent 4 days there, you're actually a tourist. It has nothing to do with your color, where you come from, and the conditions that they're in. Now, I still believe that for a country to thrive, domestic tourism must be the most and number one encouraged type of business. Because in every country that's successful in tourism, the international market only forms about 10%. If you look at, for example, a country like China, 500 million Chinese moved across China in 2019, and only 53 million came from outside China to spend the money. Now, if you redefine tourism wrongly, if you do not put up the conditions that allow the locals to move within the country, for you to come from out, what we're seeing now is that 99% of the tourists coming in from outside have had 2 jabs for COVID. They have tested at least 120 hours before. They're observing the SOPs. Some are actually testing at the airport. Now, if a Ugandan has had his 2 jabs, if a Ugandan has tested just before going to, say, Safari Lodge or go to Gulu or whatever it is, the Ugandan should be allowed. Because if we do not encourage Ugandans, let me give you an example of what's happening in Kenya. There's a World Safari Rally happening in Kenya right now. A gentleman called me yesterday and said the numbers of Ugandans in Kenya now spending money as tourists, because a tourist, if you go to watch rally, you are going to spend money on accommodation, on feeding, on transport, on everything. So the economy of Kenya grows, and that's the reason why you see that Uganda is number one source market for Kenya's tourism, because Kenyans have been very deliberate in trying to get Ugandans to go to Kenya. Yeah. Because one of the problems as a country is that our education system tells us about everything else across the world being better than what we have here. We don't study about Uganda. Our kids in primary school don't study about what the value of Lake Victoria means, the value of the Nile means, the value of great weather means, our pineapples. We don't talk about that. We will never progress until we understand the value of those things. Now, because of that, other countries come in and take Ugandans away. Yeah. And they make money from Ugandans. If you look at 2019, Kenya had 245,000 Americans. The second largest population of tourists were Ugandans, 223,000. The third was the UK with 210. Now, if each Ugandan who went to Kenya spent $1,000, Kenya made over $200 million from us. That's what it means.
So moving forward as the tourism sector and also as the government, what should we be looking at to see that we can survive, the sector can actually survive in the coming days? Because COVID is here for a while and we need to address some of these issues.
Absolutely. It's important that as Ugandans we observe SOPs.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that for us to be put on the red list in the UK, the information was gotten from here.
So we need to outdo that negative perception.
Absolutely. We need to talk about the challenges that we're having, but we also need to talk about how we're approaching the challenges as a country and how we're going to overcome them. We also need to be telling people we have only had less than 1,000 people die. Okay, of course, death is not a good thing, but the reality is if you compare Uganda, for example, to the UK who are banning us, our numbers are nothing compared to their numbers.
Yeah.
So it is key for us. And you know UK, when UK makes a statement like that, it affects us everywhere else for other opportunities. You see the Americans will come on board, the Australians will also come on board in terms of communication. Soon, you're going to hear that. It really affects our dealings. However, when they block us like this, we're still going to borrow from them. So it makes us become more poorer. That's the reason why you have less than 500 ICU beds in the country. It's because of poverty, and we need to fight poverty. In fact, poverty kills more people, will kill more Ugandans than COVID will do at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, AMOS WEKESA, who is one of the leading practitioners in the tourism industry, speaking to us on some of the efforts that are being put in place to see that we support this sector and continue to survive in this current pandemic. Thank you all for joining us on Talk of the Nation. You're still with me, Sandra Twinodio, on NTV Weekend Edition.